Hello everyone, welcome back to PrepBee, and today we are going to do another episode of VARC practice, and here we are solving CAT 2022 slot 1 passage. So let's get started. The Chinese have two different concepts of copy. Fanciful are imitations where the difference from the original is obvious. There are small models or copies that can be purchased in a museum shop, for example. The second concept for a copy is physical. They are exact reproductions of the original, which for the Chinese are of equal value to the original. It has absolutely no negative connotations. The discrepancy with regard to the understanding of what a copy is has often led to misunderstandings and arguments between China and Western museums. The Chinese often send copies abroad instead of originals in the firm belief that they are not essentially different from the originals. The rejection that then comes from the Western museum is perceived by the Chinese as an insult. All right. So they are just, the author is trying to say that the Chinese, they see copies in two different ways. Fanciful means a type of copy that clearly looks different from the original. And the fanciful, they are often like models or replicas that are sold in museum gift shops. Whereas physical, they are copies that look exactly like the original, and the Chinese view them as equally valuable. To the Chinese, there is nothing negative about the exact copy. So the different views of copies have caused misunderstandings between the Chinese and Western museums. The Chinese, they sometimes send these physical, that is the exact copies, instead of original works because they believe there is no difference. And then they get rejected from the Western museums, and the Chinese, they feel insulted, they feel offended. This is the crux of the first paragraph here. All right. The Far Eastern notion of identity is also very confusing to the Western observer. The Ice Grand Shrine in Japan is 1300 years old for the millions of Japanese people who go on there on pilgrimage every year. But in reality, this temple complex is completely rebuilt from scratch every 20 years. All right. Here they are, the author is trying to say that the Eastern India, what makes something unique or authentic is really confusing to the Western people. Many Japanese believe that the this grand shrine is 1300 years old, and they make pilgrimages there every each other. However, the shrine is actually rebuilt entirely every 20 years. So this is where, so what is authentic is very confusing, very debatable to the Western observer, because Western observers see it is getting rebuilt every 20 years. So how is that, so how is that something that is very important? How is that you consider built 1300 years old, right? Now, next paragraph, let's see. So I hope you are understanding what the author is trying to say in the first two paragraphs. Now, the Cathedral of Freiburg Minster in southwest Germany is covered in scaffolding almost all year now. The sandstone from which it is built is a very soft, porous material that does not withstand natural erosion by rain and wind. After a while, it crumbles. As a result, the cathedral is continually being examined for damage and eroded stones are replaced. And in the cathedral's dedicated workshop, copies of the damaged sandstone figures are constantly being produced. Of course, attempts are made to preserve the stones from the Middle Ages for as long as possible, but at some point they too are removed and replaced with new stones. All right. So the Freiburg Cathedral in Germany is most of the times it is under construction only. All right. So the sandstone that is used to build, it is very soft. It erodes quickly from rain and wind, and over the time the sandstone wears away. So to maintain it, damaged stones are regularly checked and replaced. In a workshop, copies of these worn-out sculptures are constantly made, and they try to keep the original stones from the Middle Ages for as long as they can. Eventually, even these old stones have to be replaced with new stones, is what the author is trying to say. It is just talking about the sandstone, which is made of very something that is very soft and very porous material that does not withstand natural erosion, and how it is continually being examined for damage, and then it is getting replaced. Although they try to preserve everything that is from the Middle Age as long as possible, but someday even that will get replaced. Fundamentally, this is the same operation as with the Japanese shrine, except In this case, the production of a replica takes place very slowly and over long periods of time. In the field of art as well, the idea of an unaccessible original developed historically in the Western world. Back in the 17th century in the West, excavated artworks from antiquity were treated quite differently from today. They were not restored in a way that was faithful to the original. Instead, there were massive intervention in these works, changing their appearances. So this process is similar to the Japanese shrine, but it takes place more gradually over the time, right? So in the Western art, the idea of unique or original piece is deeply valued. In the 1600s, the Westerners treated ancient art very differently than they do it now. These ancient pieces weren't restored to look exactly like the original. People made big changes to the pieces, often altering how they looked. So, it is probably this intellectual position that explains why Asians have far fewer sculptures about cloning than Europeans. The South Korean cloning researchers Hwang Woo-sok, who attracted worldwide attention with his cloning experiments in 2004, is a Buddhist. He found a great deal of supporters and followers among Buddhists, while Christians called for a ban on human cloning. Wong legitimized his cloning experiments with his religious affiliations. I'm a Buddhist. I have no philosophical problem with cloning. And as you know, the basis of Buddhism is that life is recycled through reincarnation. In some ways, I think therapeutic cloning restarts the circle of life. So, the difference in thinking might explain why some Asian cultures are more open to cloning than Europeans. So there is a South Korean person named Hwang Woo-so. He's known for his cloning experiments that follows Buddhism. So Buddhists, they supported his work, while Christians, they opposed it. Um, that person he justified saying that Buddhist beliefs really don't conflict with what he's doing, and Buddhism actually teaches that life goes through cycle of rebirth, and he viewed cloning as something that is a way to continue the cycle of life, which is similar to reincarnation, and he found no problem with cloning. There is no philosophical issue that he found with cloning. Cloning is nothing but it is a technique that we use to make the exact copies of living things. Exact genetic copies of living things is made. That is cloning. All right. Now, based on the passage, which of the following copies would a Chinese museum be unlikely to consider as having less value than the original? So, let's see. Pablo Picaso's painting of Vincent van Gogh, original painting, identical in every aspect. If it is identical in every aspect, even if it is a copy, they wouldn't mind because for them, they are similar, they hold similar values. So first is your answer. Let's see photograph printed. So they do not do any differentiation in terms of art, right? So Picasso's photograph of this one original painting printed to exactly the same scale. We are not talking about the same scale. If every aspect is similar, then we are going to do. All right. This is miniaturized, which is raw. Then bearing the signature again out of context distortion. Which of the following statements does not correctly express the similarity between Iceland Shrine and the Cathedral of Freiburg Minster? Both can be regarded as very old structures. Okay, they are old. Both one day will be completely rebuilt. Yes. Both one day will be both were built as places of worship. Yes. Both are continually undergoing restoration. Now see, this one, uh, the shrine is rebuilt every 20 years. The second one is cathedral is going continually undergoing restoration. So fourth is your answer. Now, which of the following scenarios is unlikely to follow from the arguments of the passage? The 17th century British painter would have no problem adding personal touches when restoring an ancient Roman uh, painting. All right, the British painter would have no problem adding personal touches when restoring an ancient painting. All right, fine. The 20th century Japanese Buddhist monk would value a reconstructed shrine as the original. Okay. it might follow. A 17th century French artist who adhered to Christian worldview would need to be completely true to the original intent of painting when restoring it. So French artist who adhered to Christian worldview would need to be completely true to the original intent of painting when restoring it. This is something that is not likely to follow the arguments of the passage. The value that the modern West assigns to an unassociable original has resulted in all of the following except it discourages them from making interventions in ancient art. Yes, it actually does. Then it discourages them from carrying out human cloning. The value that the modern West assigns to an unassociable original. Here, it is not talking about human cloning at all. This is something that we are going to talk about art and literature, all of that, or artworks. It discourages from the simultaneous displays of multiple copies of painting. Yes. It allows regular employment for certain craftsmen. Okay, but again, somewhat irrelevant. Who is your answer? In that, they did not start talking about human cloning, and we were talking about this. All right. Now, petitioning is an expeditious democratic tradition used frequently in prior centuries by which citizens can bring issues directly to government. As expressions of collective voice, they support procedural democracy by shaping agendas. They can also recruit citizens to causes, give voices to voteless, and apply the discipline of rhetorical argument that clarifies a point of view. By contrast, elections are limited in several respects. They involve only a few candidates and thus fall far short of a representative democracy. Further, voters' choices are not specific to particular policies or laws, and elections are episodic, whereas the voice of the people needs to be heard and integrated constantly into democratic government. All right, so petitioning has been important to democratic functioning as it supplements the electoral processes by enabling ongoing engagement with the government. Okay, we'll hold on to it, nothing wrong about this. Petitioning is definitely more representative of the collective voice, and the functioning of democratic government would improve if we relied more on petitioning rather than holding periodic elections. This is distortion. We are not saying what is better, what is not, but we are just saying this is something that petitioning has, and this is what is lacking in the electoral thing. So here, distortion of fact. By giving citizens greater control over shaping the political and democratic agendas, political petitions are invaluable as they represent an ideal form of representative government. We do not know if it is an ideal one. Citizens become less inclined to petitioning as it enables vocal citizens to shape political agenda, but this needs to change to strengthen democracies today. They become less inclined to petitioning, something that is not at all inferred from the passage, hence one is your answer. All that we think we know about how life hangs together is really some kind of illusion that we have perpetrated on ourselves because of our limited vision. What appears to be an inanimate object such as stones turns out not only to be alive in the some way that we are, but also in very decimal ways to be affected by stimuli just as humans are. The distinction between animate and inanimate simply cannot be made when you enter the world of quantum mechanics and try to determine how those apparent subatomic particles of which you and everything else in your universe is composed are all tied together. The point is that physics and metaphysics show there is a pattern to the universe that goes beyond our capacity to grasp it with our brains. So they are talking about something physics and metaphysics. There is a pattern. We all are tied together. Everything in the universe is tied together. All right. And the distinction between animate and inanimate cannot be made when you enter this quantum mechanism. So arbitrary distinctions between inanimate and animate objects disappear at the scale of quantum mechanism at which quantum mechanics work. Okay, nothing wrong. So we'll just hold on to it. Quantum physics indicates that an astigmatic view of reality results in erroneous assumptions about the universe. It is not it does not indicate any assumption that is made about the universe. The inanimate world is both sentient and cognizant like its animate counterpart. We are not making any such comparison. The effect of stimuli is similar in inanimate objects when compared to animate objects or living beings. Is it similar? We don't know. We are just saying that the distinction goes away. So first is your answer. I hope this is clear to everyone. And so all the best for your exams. If you have any kind of doubts, please do let us know and we'll be happy to help. Thank you.